I think the last 4 years, at least, were very interesting in terms of headwinds, of multiple crises, and of course, Morocco had to manage the spillover of the crisis. But I think one lesson and maybe one recipe that we firmly believe was part of this dynamism and allowed for the recovery of our economy is that we have a long-term vision when it comes to partnerships, to integration in the global value chains. So we definitely are not changing our DNA or telling that trading with the world is not a necessity, is an axiom today. That there is, I would say, when you have, I would say, a good communication, respect, you can have opportunities. So I think this, we are really blessed, and thanks to the leadership of His Majesty, to have this long-term vision, which means that we've been having 50 trade agreements with the world, which is quite an exception, I would say, in the African continent. So we need to be, I would say, very careful in analyzing what's happening, but none of our decision is short-term. When we say that we are open, we want industry, we need to trade, we need ports, it's really for the long term. It doesn't mean that from time to time one market gets narrow, another one might open, and we have competitors coming from all over the world, but we need to keep the pace and the reforms and the openness of Morocco.
I neglected to mention that if those in the room would like to ask a question, you have a QR code that you have to scan, and that will submit the question automatically, and I will see it here. And I see that already we're getting some questions online, which I'll start to work in, and one of them is about U.S.-China trade tensions and whether that's having an impact on Morocco. I know China is a very important investor in Morocco. Can you stay out of the fray?
No, we are in the world, and I think what's happening in the world, because we are included in the global value chain, is very important. I think that definitely the trade with the U.S. is much bigger, much important than any trade that we have in China. For the last 5 years, imports from the U.S. have reached $25 billion, more or less. So this partnership is much stronger. Of course, there is this balance between the China and the U.S. that is shaping, I would say, and creating a new conversation worldwide. So we are, I would say, so small, so the influence of Morocco is probably not changing these balances, but we are very, I would say, honest in our relationship with the U.S., saying that we are an anchor of stability. We need our share of development, of modernization of industry. We are loyal to our partners, but we need to create jobs, create value, and we can be a solution, maybe geographical solution, to lease between tours the moment they will finish, hopefully, to discuss how to work together. This is what I can say about this.
If you can also talk, I believe that Morocco is subjected to 10% U.S. tariffs, which is relatively low in the scheme of things. Has that been a big problem? Previously, there was a free trade agreement, I believe, under which there were no tariffs. So have you been able to adjust to that, and how has that affected your trade with the U.S., if I may ask?
As you mentioned, we are in the lucky group of the 10%, so this is how we see it. And actually, we have much more import from the U.S. than exports. Hopefully,
what do you import from the U.S.?
A lot of things, I would say, a lot of products, planes, food, energy, so really all type. And this is why I say we're talking about $25 billion for the last 5 years. So definitely the trade cannot be in favor of Morocco. So we had an honest discussion. Of course, we tried to negotiate because we need to do so. But globally, it doesn't have, I would say, massive impact on our economy.
Let's talk about some of the areas that you're growing in the economy in Morocco. And I was mentioning to you earlier before we started that I had the good luck to go to Morocco during the 1980s when Morocco was very active diplomatically in terms of Arab-Israeli peace, intra-Arab relations, and I was based in Cairo in those days. And I mean, even then one could see that tourism was extremely important. It's a beautiful country, as anyone who's been there knows, and has a huge variety, whether you're going skiing or going swimming or you're going for the food or the handicrafts. So what is the status of the tourism industry, and how big a sector is it for Morocco now, and how do you see it growing?
I'm so glad that I would say the tourism sector has, I would say, gone in a very dynamic way. On the opposite on what the big strategy firms was predicting in 2020 and 21. I was Minister of Tourism, as you mentioned.
During COVID.
I've experienced tourism without tourists, very interesting one. But after this, we had really a massive increase, more than double digit in tourism. First, because I think that we made the clear decision is that to have tourists, you need to connect to the world. So we've been, I would say, part to the Open Sky Agreement with the European Union for years, but we didn't push it as much as we needed to do. So today we welcome any airline who wants to connect two cities wherever in the world, and it works very well. This is a very important thing, and it helps to grow the number. Second thing is that we pushed the digital marketing, I would say, of Morocco to explain the diversity of our country. So the US tourists like to mix between golf and culture, so they go to the imperial cities. For some reason, the Spanish tourists would like to go to the desert and see the desert, yes, and the French tourists, which are the major ones, are going to Marrakesh. Yeah. And this is very interesting because it allows to create opportunities, jobs, economic revenue, different one in very, very different cities. The other thing is that we open for private investment in hospitality, in all other sectors around tourism. And then we're lucky to be 3 hours flight from so many, I would say, big cities, which helps definitely for the short-term breaks, which is a good product, actually. People won't travel anymore for 2 or 3 weeks. But for 3 or 4 days, we are a good destination. So it's 7% GDP, 8% more or less of jobs, direct jobs. And hopefully we can go further in this number, which is a good solution for so many regions that don't have industries or other, I would say, economic sectors.
Yeah. Let me ask a little bit more about youth employment, because obviously this has been an issue in recent weeks. As we know, there have been so-called Gen Z protests in Morocco. They've been in a number of countries, actually. And what Morocco is doing to try to provide more jobs for young people in particular?
It's a massive challenge, this job and employment for youth. So for Morocco, we are working first on the fundamentals. And fundamentals is education, all kinds of education, from pre-scholarship to reform school, and then reform the universities, because we need skilled jobs. We are also working, this is on the social side of it, actually. Then we are building infrastructure and create the conditions for growth and economy. It is happening. But despite this, you will tell me you still have 13% unemployment rate, and especially for young the youth.
People, it's
over 30%. We cannot be just waiting for our, I would say, economic theories to work and jobs to come, because they have to come now, and a lot of them cannot wait for other 5 or 10 years. This is why we have, I would say, comprehensive plan that we started early 25, not 2 weeks ago. First, to accelerate the pace of this reform to have impact. Secondly, to change the KPIs of the other public policies. because you have department in charge of jobs, but actually it's all the departments that have impact on jobs. So now we have new dashboard, and any public policies to be funded, to be budgeted, needs to have this KPI. And then we have real other issues that are intermediation between the offer of the job and the demand. Mm-hmm. The strange thing is that if you see some entrepreneurs, some companies, they will tell you we are suffering a shortage of I would say, human capital. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, you have a lot of young people who have a degree in geography or biology and cannot find a job. So we need to find solution, and this is an area where probably our recipe didn't work very well right now. So we have areas, for instance, aviation sector. We've chosen day one to say, to do this, we'll go through private-public partnerships, because it's aviation. We don't know how to train people who go there. Because it was technological, we thought that PPP was the right thing to do. But I'm sure that we can experience the same thing in so many areas. So I'm long in this answer. What I want to say is that we need to keep the pace of the reform for the long term. Yeah. What we are asked today is short-term results and quick wins immediately, because if I tell a young man that school is going to be better in 10 years from now, I say, yes, but I want a job today or tomorrow. So this is the challenge. There is two other challenges, is that we lost a lot of jobs because we had a drought for 7 years. Oof. So the dynamic in other sectors than agriculture cannot be providing enough jobs for all the one we lost. And we lost like 1 million jobs for the last 10 years in agriculture. 1 million jobs is a massive number. And second challenge, this is the future, is that you have a lot of new technological, I would say, solutions, a new change that probably will change the dynamic of what is creating job or what is not creating job. And for this, I think we should be innovative and leapfrog. We cannot be always one technology behind what the West is doing, because otherwise they're already seeing that they're losing jobs in some areas. So we cannot afford to be investing, I would say, in some areas that is killing jobs instead of creating jobs. So this is, in few words, what's the challenge of unemployment looks like in Morocco.
There's a question here from an Africa analyst based here in Washington, who notes that Morocco's reform agenda has earned strong international confidence for maintaining fiscal stability and attracting investment. But he says many citizens still feel disconnected from these results. So how does your ministry ensure that national reforms and investment flows lead to visible improvements in people's daily lives? And how do you measure whether that progress is helping to rebuild social trust? And I think you've dealt with that to some extent, but is there more that you're doing to try to show people that these investments will produce positive results for them?
I think that what you are, I would say, talking about on the last week is probably a kind of wake-up call. Because it's an occasion to mirror what progress we have been doing, and I can say without apologizing that we are doing reform and progress, but also the time to see what we haven't finished, mm-hmm. and maybe where we got it wrong in time of prioritization, or maybe just miscommunication. This is very interesting. So as a Ministry of Economy and Finance, but as a government in general, what we need to do is every dirham we spend, it needs to be as close as possible to the youngest people opportunities. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that we should be focusing only on short-term results. but also to long-term results, but these intermediate solutions. So to put things clearly, we cannot sacrifice the long-term reforms because long-term is very important, and we are managing a legacy now. So, for instance, for health or education, we are managing a legacy. We went to election, we won the elections, so it means that we are taking full responsibility for the past, for the present, and to prepare for the future. And I think that we need to create clear, transparent communication channel. First, to explain what we are doing, to listen to what needs to be fixed, and then to build this trust, because at the end of the day, these young people just want, they're not, I would say, angry about Morocco. They are impatient about Morocco. And you know that the pace of information is not the same one that public policies. So, like many, I would say, members or colleagues of the government, I'm literally born in another century than them. So we catch up. We try with our old people from another century to prepare a better future for people who are born in another century. So we need to catch up. We need to listen. And I think this is a very, very, very interesting time to do this, because we are fully committed to do the job, to keep the house in order, but we cannot not listen. It's really a time to reveal something about young people who wants to participate. I think this is what we are learning, actually.
Yeah, well, the young people make themselves heard. That is certainly true in every country now. Some questions about Chinese investment that we're getting also. Which foreign country is the biggest foreign investor in Morocco, if I may ask?
It is, this year it's Spain, actually, but it's either Spain or France, or we have also some countries from the Middle East that are growing in the ranking, actually.
And where does China figure in the scheme
really,
of things?
no, they're not in the top 10, maybe last in the top 10, but definitely not. We have much stronger relationship with Europe, US, and Middle East regarding the foreign investments.
Yeah. I wanted to ask also whether you've gotten any economic benefits from the Abraham Accords.
We started when the Abraham Accords were implemented to have a strong relationship, I would say, economic ones in tourism, but also in technology, innovation, etc. I think that the pace have reduced for the last years, but I think that the story of the economic relationship is strong, is old, and we have really a lot to learn from desalination, for instance, is a real solution in Israel that has bring a lot of solution for the farmers. In Morocco, we have really a scarcity in water, and we need to bring water for people to live from their agriculture business. There is some expertise, and we need to build on this one as an example.
Okay. There's a question here about Morocco's expectations regarding the West African gas pipelines. So maybe begin by telling us what that project entails.
Okay. So first, Morocco is not producing any gas. We have some new, I would say, hopefully production that is a promising one, but nothing that is changing the landscape. Very important, though this pipeline is not for any Moroccan production. Very important project for the African continent and for the Western continent. Why? Because we still have in Africa 600 million households doesn't have electricity. In the same time, you have a lot of gas, of oil produced, and so the moment you have this pipeline crossing almost 14 countries, it means that the one who produces, first they have their own needs on electricity. They bring cheaper and more affordable energy to the countries in the neighborhood. And then we connect to a market, like the European market, to Morocco, because Morocco is effectively today connected to the electric market with Spain. We buy some electricity from Spain, but we were also able, and we are also have a pipeline for gas with the. So very interesting one to say that the solution is regional integration, because we have the same, I would say, objective, access to affordable, hopefully more and more clean energy for the future, but we don't have the same situation. If we put together our know-how, our expertise, and our connectivity, then we are bringing solution to each country, to the group of the country, and also to the exchanges with Europe and hopefully with other regions in the future.
What about renewable energy? I mean, it's a very sunny country, so
yes.
I would think solar is a major area.
So again, renewable energy, our strategy and the leadership of His Majesty the King goes back to, it hasn't changed almost from 2009, when we have an agency dedicated to implement a strategy to push for the renewable energies. So today, capacity for electricity is 40%, relies for 40% on renewable energy. Objective is to reach 52% by 2030. As you mentioned, we're lucky to have a sunny country, and we are even more lucky because we have sun and wind in the same place, which is very interesting. Because when it is just solar, you have intermittence problem. You need batteries. So when you have at the same place solar and wind, then it gives you also even more means to be more competitive. Objective is access to electricity and sovereignty, if these words can, and then also have a cleaner energy for the future. And so we are really accelerated. Interesting thing also about renewable. In the beginning, this agency was, I would say, funded by the government because we need to have a proof of concept. And today, we don't need to invest any single public dollar because you have a lot of, I would say, massive international companies that are doing the investment in a PPP mode, which I would say relieve the budget of our government.